Welcome back to the Laugh Track Podcast. I am Brian Michael Max, and today my guest is
I'm Todd Wolfe.
Todd Wolfe. Um, to firstly talk about, you've gone on and directed many things, mainly your film We Need to Talk, which we will certainly be talking about. But before then, I kind of wanted to know a little bit about your, uh, before then, what you were working on. So you worked on a project called Streets. I kind of want to know what was the beginning of that process like.
So I went to school for music and video, and I had every intention of being in the record business at the time. I was a big hip hop head, and I eventually got to the point where I was working with Rough House Records, which was Lauryn Hill, Cypress Hill, the Fugees, a lot of like classic like 90s stuff back in the day. And eventually that transformed into me getting involved with like more independent artists and them needing my help. And then eventually I got kind of aligned with a buddy of mine named Jamal Hill, and he was like shooting music videos independently. So we kind of crossed paths, and eventually we worked on a project called New Jack City: The Next Generation, like a total like Philly like local kind of DVD hood movie type deal. It had um it had battle like uh, videotape battles on it that back in the day, like Freeway and the Takedown, like all these different things, and it became like pretty popular. Long story short, and then just from there, that's where I kind of got the bug. Like I took a bunch of like film and video classes in college, but I was like, I'm going to be a record guy.
Mhm.
Well, I caught the bug then working on all these video projects, and we did like short film like hip hop videos, short film things, and then it was all uphill or downhill from there, I guess, whichever way I guess my mom probably saw it at the time. Um, and then
Yeah.
just from there, it kind of graduated towards doing more music videos and then more like short films, and then eventually that turned into Charlie Mack and Jamal, who I mentioned. Charlie Mack, one of Will Smith's buddies, coming to me and just saying like, "Hey, we want to do a movie based around Meek Mill at the
Hmm.
time." And so, we kind of circled up the wagons. Me and Jamal got the band back together. He wrote a script. I helped produce it and pull it all together. Got the local crew. It's probably one of the first things I ever shot with like a 5D Mark II, Canon 5D Mark II back in the day when they were
Yeah.
using those for film. So we ended up just cobbling that together with like 25 grand. Like we hardly had any money to make it work. It was we begged, borrowed, and stealed and got it done. And eventually we went and licensed it to like BET, and it went on Netflix. And it went on. It was pretty great, pretty successful. But it was rough. Like
Hmm.
it was blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of late nights. A lot of us just like packing everything in our car. Like it was wild. It was a lot of like favors and stuff like that. But it was a labor of love, I guess, at the end of the day.
Now, working on that, would you say a lot of the experiences you learned from that kind of helped you when making Greenpeace? Because that was a project that you stated before was, something you had thought of for a while. And um, now, correct me if I'm wrong, you were doing it with your improv group a little bit, right?
So We Need to Talk was kind of inspired by my improv group, but like Greenpeace was over the years you meet people like yourself that are doing film and stuff like that. And these guys came to me and they were like, "Hey, we're working on this project. Would you be willing to come in and help out on this?" And I came in and just kind of directed a couple of those. And that was like it's like a comedy, weed centric comedy
Yeah.
web based thing, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had uh the guy from Clerks was in it, and then the one guy from Orgasmo in it. Oh my God, their names are um, escaping me right now. But that was a really fun project. Like that we definitely had a few more dollars, a few more resources in terms of lights, but not a whole lot. It was a lot of favors and like people just kind of volunteering their time to try to like make something cool.
Hmm.
And have something to show other people, like, and could we sell it? Could we do this and that? And it certainly helped me when I started casting We Need to Talk. So having like these projects under my belt to be able to show like, hey, look, I'm not an idiot. I know how to take the lens cap off. You know, I
Yeah.
can I can hit record. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that it when the time is right and you get the opportunity in front of you, you know, all those little projects that might not seem like anything, or maybe they didn't go anywhere the way you wanted them to, or maybe they were successful, but maybe not as much as you wanted. Um, they end up helping you kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. Now, when you were kind of growing up and or well going through these different films or so, was there like something that happened on set, whether it was Greenpeace Street or even We Need to Talk? Is there something that you would say you learn like nothing in like film school or any teacher could have taught, something you kind of learned on the day to learn, certain curveballs that were thrown at you or things you have to think of on the fly?
I think the best thing you can do as a producer or a director is just set the tone. Like if you're chaotic and you're nervous and you're all like all over the place, the whole production is going to be all over the place. Like you got to kind of be the rock.
Hmm.
What and you know if you're running the production, you got to make people got to be confident that you know what you're doing, or at least you got it under control. Because it's always chaos no matter what when you're
Yeah.
filming things. But as long as somebody feels like somebody knows where we're going, they'll go along for the ride with you. Same thing with directing. Like as long as people are comfortable with you and you've made them feel at ease with like playing pretend with you at the end of the day. Like you're literally asking other adults to like play pretend with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I promise I'm not going to make you look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like that's what you're really trying to make sure people are good with. And I think that just comes with kind of experience. You get a couple things under your belt, people see what you've done, they're like, okay, I won't look like an asshole if I do this project. And then, it kind of builds from there.
Okay. Now, still going to kind of like your background and so was any of the work that you did on you worked on Frono's movies?
Oh, Frono's Photo. I worked with Frono's Photo for a while. So yeah, Frono's Movies was a little side project him and I tried to do, but
Mm,
I worked with Jared Poland from Frono's Photo for a while. Shoot, when was that? Just kind of in between jobs. I did some he's like a YouTube influencer about photography and cameras and all that. And early on, like he had this idea of making like a guide to like how to shoot photos and stuff like that. And he was like, um, he posted like on Craigslist looking for like an editor for something. And I don't know why I was like, oh, he shot like video of a band at South by Southwest. That's what it was.
hmm.
And I saw that and I was like, oh, that might be fun. Like I was looking for work, but like anyway, video from South by Southwest. I was like, that sounds kind of cool. That might be cool. It's not like it's something out of the ordinary. So I did that with him. We kind of worked well together, and then he decided to do this video teaching class that he basically ended up selling. So we did one of those, and then we did another one, and then I started kind of working with him full time for a while, and then we did more of these videos. So I think when I started with him, he was he might have had a couple 100,000 subscribers, and now I know he's well into over 1 million subscribers on his
Yeah.
YouTube channel, and it's funny how many people actually know him, or even still to this day text me or recognize me from being on the podcast with him and being a fool over there on that thing. So but yeah, that was certainly it certainly opened my eyes in terms of more of like run and gun kind of social media and creating content that you know film people might look down their noses at. Like it's a way of working that even today, like when I work for commercial stuff, so much of it is it's such a different style to like film for social than it is for like I don't want to say art, but like film for like traditional media.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of it just it doesn't really work anymore. Like it's so having the experience of having worked in kind of that social media early on, YouTube space was certainly helpful to me, especially now when I do it with all the commercial work that I do. I think it's been very helpful. So that was a fun time. It was a wild time. It was a
Mhm.
good time.
Yeah. Now you had kind of mentioned it, and I'm curious. You've kind of seen what the layout and one thing I will say, and we need to talk is as someone who avidly games and watches people, getting down the streaming and the gamers, playing it all, is it interesting that you had to incorporate that into We Need to Talk? Like, is it, if you would have made this even 10 years ago or, 20 years ago, how different you would have had to portray the new
Yeah.
age of streaming and entertainment.
Well, I mean, even as we were, so We Need to Talk came about as it was kind of a culmination of like multiple ideas. And this is probably one piece of advice I would give anybody that's trying to wrap their head around telling a story in video or film. It would be, it's not necessarily one great idea that I found ends up being the best thing. It's usually merging a bunch of great ideas together to make one project. So I had this idea at one point of like, we need to talk is like a terrible phrase when people say it to you, like, oh shit, I'm getting fired, I'm getting broken. Like it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like whenever you're like, that sucks. I'm like, oh, that'd be a funny title for a movie. And I put that off, put that in my brain and just forgot about it. Probably put it in my phone at that point. And then, being an independent filmmaker, especially, when you're freelance, you might edit, you might shoot something and you're editing, and then, you have to export and you're waiting around for things to export or render. And, what do you do at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday? You jump on the video games while your computer's spitting out what you're working on. So I ended up like playing games with like so many weird random people. And like I was big into Destiny. I don't know if you're familiar with that video game, but I was
Yep.
big into Destiny, played a good amount of Call of Duty and stuff like that. So that was kind of like my get in, get out real quick when I had time. I could go shoot some aliens or shoot some people and move on from there.
Yeah.
But with that, I was always playing and I was kind of like always like taking notes of like the wild different personalities I'd meet and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, oh, that might be a cool idea, like gamers and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't know what I would do with that. And then full circle, after working with Fro Knows Photo for a while, I was like, this is wild. Like working with a personality in this space. And I don't think Jared would be offended when I say he is a strong personality
Yeah.
on and off camera. That at some point, when him and I, we kind of took a break and I stepped back, I kind of reflected on all of it and I was like, oh, these are all great ideas. It's an influencer, YouTuber, kind of big personality, and he talks all day, but does he connect with the people that he knows? Like this was always something we would talk about internally, like, this personal connection with the audience or the personal connection you have with real people in your life. Like we would talk about this, him and I, one on one. And I was like, oh, we need to talk this personality driven thing. And I was like, oh, but I don't want a guy that like hawks, cameras. Like that's not that interesting. Well, I mean, it might be interesting, but I was like, I don't want to make a movie about that. But I was like, oh shit, he could be a video game influencer. And so you can kind of see like the light bulb went off, and I was like, oh shit, that's perfect. Title, concept, what the guy does. And then I was like, all right, let me figure this out. And I like once it was probably years of like ideas floating. And then when it all came together in my brain, it took 3 weeks to write. Like
Oh,
it was
wow.
super fast. Like I bet you what you see on screen is probably 90-95% of what I wrote in the first draft. There was a little bit of extra stuff that I finessed it a little bit, um, but not to say that I'm a brilliant writer. Like it
Yeah.
literally was years of me thinking about it before I actually just opened up the computer and started writing it down once I realized like, oh, this is a good idea. So I don't know. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned over the years is that, it's never one big idea, one big giant great idea. It's a lot of little good ideas, and you just kind of merge them together when you what I always say when I see the Matrix, like you can step back and you can kind of see like everything working, and you're
Hmm.
like, that's what it should be. So it was
Yeah.
cool that way.
So I guess we'll just delve right into talking about it. Is so my connection to this film, as I kind of let you know, is on a random day. I'm from originally South Jersey.
Okay.
The gaming store that you guys had filmed at, had been on like my radar because I'd always like loved retro gaming and so. And I I was probably 18, 19 or so.
Yeah.
And I remember like my dad and I just got in the car, we drove over and we're like, what the hell's going on over here? And they were still letting people go into the store.
Yeah. We weren't trying to hurt their business. We were like, I probably, if I thought about it, I probably remember whoever was coming in to buy something. Yeah, that's great.
So that thing is we come in and I grew up on the Nickelodeon age. So when I walked in, I'm like, that guy looks a
Oh,
lot
that's
like the
amazing.
guy from Big Time Rush. And I'm standing there and you guys were very cool where I think right before we left, I had said like, "Hey, can I get a photo?" And I might have asked you, not even
Yeah.
knowing. And you're
I
like, yeah,
hope so.
you get a photo with him if you want. So um, that is this is one of like my favorite stories of one just kind of seeing it was right
That's
before
incredible.
like I delved into doing, film and all that. So and then meeting James, I was like, again, I watched him as a kid. I was like, what the hell is this? This is
Pretty
awesome.
awesome. That's pretty awesome, dude. Yeah, I will. I'll be honest. When we were going through the casting process, and I was looking for like, in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's a bum. He's out of shape gamer. Probably putting myself into this role, like, oh, he's a loser. And then when I got the audition tape for James, I was like, oh my God, he's a pretty mofo. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know about this. But when his audition tape, he was so committed to it. And his audition tape was one of the best I've ever seen. Like he really went all in for it. And I was like, I love this. Like he wants this so bad. And I love working with him. Like I still talk to him to this day. And I mean, so
Mm.
it's we keep in touch. Shit, he texted me, I don't know, last week or so. So it's he was really great and a lot of fun to work with, and he when I was cat when I was and this is what most of my point when I was casting and I was looking at all the videos. I was like, oh yeah, I got this guy. It was this show that my daughter, to your point, my
Yeah.
daughter's 20 now. She used to watch Big Time Rush, and I was like, oh, it's the guy that they used to watch on TV. And I showed her the video, and like she screams and starts running around the room, and I was like, okay, that's probably not a bad sign that maybe he's
Yeah.
a good choice. So no, I certainly knew the power of James Maslow and Big Time Rush in the moment,
Hmm.
and it still gives dividends, still pays dividends.
Yeah. So, and you had kind of mentioned it while you were talking. Your initial idea was this guy was going to be a bit of a loser and everything. One thing that I really liked about the film was, that you first casted James, who, like you said, a good-looking dude who uh, really kind of puts it all into the character. And I also like that even the people he was gaming with showed the diversity of a gaming community.
Yep.
So, while you were writing or doing the casting process, was that something you definitely looked into, was looking at showing that gaming's kind of could be from, the probably like 10, 12-year-old kid you had to the British woman, was that something that you were definitely looking into to
It
show?
was it was reality. Like I used to
Mhm.
play Destiny, and this guy would be online, and his internet wife was British, and then there was a guy that would always be yelling at his kids, like when we would play, and then I'm not really that clever. Like these were
Yeah.
literally kind of like based in like, I combined a couple traits and personalities. And like even the one guy, one of my best friends, his player name is Tango. So like I literally just started like stealing all the craziest things that were happening like over the course of talking to these people. Because we would my buddy and I, we would just laugh and joke about like this dude is gonna marry this girl from London and this dude cursing all the time in front of his kids. Like we were like, what is happening right now? And then I think we're all familiar with the young kid that comes on and like curses like a sailor, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what is going on with this kid? So it was all based on just real experiences that I think we've all had. So when I went into casting, it was just trying to fill those buckets. The only thing I definitely wrote with somebody in mind was Trey Chaney from The Wire to
Hmm.
play Tango Unchained. Like I worked with him in Streets. So he was in the Streets movie with Meek Mill, and him and I had like just stayed friends. Like ever since that, I hit it off with him. I thought he was awesome, and we just kind of hit it off. So we stayed in touch all those years. And when the opportunity came to fill a role of like this dude that still lived at home with his parents, his mom, I was like, Trey, you good with this, man? I was like, I don't want to paint you in any kind of funky light. And he's like, I'm all in. He's like, I love it.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't get to do comedy enough because he does all this kind of like Trey does a lot with The Wire and other things. He does a lot of like these kind of like gangster type stuff. If you talk to him, sweetest dude in the world,
Yeah.
sweetest family man, like the sweetest, most caring dude you'll ever meet. His gangster persona and smacking people on film, like which I was a part of at one point, furthest from that person. And I was like, I love the idea of like putting you in like a more comedic, like fun light, put you somewhere where, you know, basically exercise a muscle maybe you don't get to do all the time. So so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, all those people were just based on real people that I kind of dealt with online when I was playing
Okay.
games.
And then when it comes to, because my friend and I, we watched the film um, together to, just see what it was. And so now he was curious, the kid that you had playing, like you said, the young kid who's, which by the way, as someone who grew up kind of around those Call of Duty lobby days, was
Hmm.
extremely accurate, which was very nice to see.
Oh yeah.
Is that, did you have to work with his parents on set and going, listen, this is what he's saying? Like, is that something you kind of just have to give the
So
heads up
yeah,
on?
yeah, working with the casting director, I was like, look, like I gave them the worst like snippet to as the audition. I'm like, look, here's the script. This
Yeah.
kid is an asshole. He's gonna have to curse. Like I didn't want any surprises. Like I didn't want the parents to be
Yeah.
surprised. And and when he came and his mom came, I was like, look, I'm sorry. And obviously we were joking around. I was like, I know he probably has never heard a curse word in his life, and they're all laughing and all that.
Yeah.
But he was great. He's probably 30 now at this point. No, um he's a little older now. But yeah, no, but yeah, in a situation like that where you're having kids kind of say inappropriate things, probably you got to work with the parents, and I think as long as you're up front in the casting process, like they know what they're getting into and they know why this kid is give them a little bit of motivation and understanding of like why the character has to be like this.
Hmm.
And he had a little bit of a character arc to where he was a little bit of a better person on the other side. So I think that probably helped soften the blow. But it was fun, and mom was very very generous and very nice and enjoyed the process, and she wasn't too concerned.
That's good. Now, when you keep going with the casting process, well, you talked about how you knew Big Time, James from Big Time Rush. Did you also look into anyone else seeing like their previous work in the aspect of just, you had Emily Brett Rickards, who had done
Hmm.
Arrow and mainly superhero,
Hmm.
playing, I would say, a pretty different role, which, by the way,
Yeah,
was, I believe, the standout. She was the first time
she
she
killed.
comes
Yeah,
over,
she killed. Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Do you go, is that a big thing? Is looking is like, can these people do, comedy? Can they understand what the,
Everybody had to tape. Everybody taped their audition, and I have all those auditions to this day. So,
Mhm.
like I said, James said an audition tape, and he went all out, like production wise, and like even the jacket he's wearing with the little stripes in
Yeah.
in the movie, he wore that in his audition. I was like, bro, just bring that with you, man, because that plays. So, I kind of stole a little bit from his audition, and then, once he's on set, like we kind of worked up the character a little more, like, trying to push him a little more, like, because like the character almost reminds me of like Billy Madison or like, like just this man child type vibe. So like we tried to amp that up. But Emily, same thing. Like Emily sent in a tape, and it was one of those things. Like once I saw it, I was like, "There's nobody else." Like that's her. And I wasn't really familiar with like Obviously, I saw her IMDb credits, but like I wasn't that familiar with like Arrow or like the fan base or anything like that.
Hmm.
I definitely realized it once like it was announced in the trades that she was attached. Like then I was like, holy shit! Like people love her. Like I just loved her audition. Like she killed it, and I was super happy to see that she had a fan base like that. But I will say in the casting process, I know we live. It's probably obvious now more than ever that people's social media followings and like the audience they bring to the table is always important. So that was important when casting James. Like we knew like he had a fan base that he could bring to the movie. We knew Emily had a fan base she could bring to the movie, which was just a bonus because they both were luckily they were the strongest kind of auditions that we got that fit the bill. So um and same thing with Jonathan. Joe, his right hand man. Like, I had in my mind a vision of like some like nerdy, not nerdy, like hipster, like West Philly, Brooklyn type dude, and he came in and just freaking crushed. And then he was probably Jonathan is probably the biggest gamer next to me of the whole cast and crew. Like he was playing like his Switch in between takes. Like he's like a super duper gamer and he was like all
Okay.
into it. And he used to like edit video before he got like before his like acting took off. Like he used to edit videos for people. So he knew how to like it was one of those things, it was just a match made in heaven with him.
Hmm.
And then yeah, Crystal Khalil, his James's girlfriend in the movie. She came in and just crushed. Um, and then Trey was a phone call. I was like, Trey, will you do? I wrote this for you. Are you gonna do this? He's
Yeah.
like, I got you. So and then everybody else we kind of we cast local. So like we did local casting in the Philadelphia area. So that's where I found the dad of the kids. He's local, and I actually worked with him before. Wonderful actor. The kid was local. Um, sorry. Um, kid was local, and then trying to think who else. Oh, and then Christine, the British. She's not really British, but she did a killer like
She's not
job.
really British.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. 100% no.
Yo, that actually just blew my mind you saying that because I
Yeah,
was like,
100% no.
because I'm thinking like
It's acting. It's
that
acting. Come on now.
that was pretty good. No, that's impressive. That's
Yeah. Yep, 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 yep. So yeah, a lot of and it was great that we could bring in a lot of like local talent and even like background and stuff like that. There's people that I pulled in and tried to like the guys from Greenpeace are in We Need to Talk. Like one of the
hmm
guys in the game store is from Greenpeace and the driver that drops James off at the axe throwing place, he's from Greenpeace.
hmm
There's little Easter eggs throughout. And you had brought up my improv group when I was writing this movie. I was like, okay, maybe I can scrape together like 20 grand between friends and family, and I'll use my improv group to do this. So a lot of those characters, like the name Scott was a good friend of mine at an improv, and I was just like, well, I'll make him the lead. And then Emily's character was based on somebody I worked with, was in my improv group that used to like, I don't know if you remember, but Emily would, her character would smoke cigarettes with a
Yeah.
glove on. Girl did this at improv, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like we'd be outside and she'd be smoking cigarettes with like a long glove on. I was like, this is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
So I think if there's anything you can probably walk away with, like I did say, like, great stories are usually a culmination of a lot of great ideas. And I think just observing and like listening and watching, like we see like crazy stuff all day, every day. It's just a matter of like, building out this like database in your mind and or probably more so in your phone. Like I put stuff in my phone all the time and I'm sure you do too, like crazy experiences or crazy things that people have said, you just collect these things in your phone. And then when all the ideas kind of, then the perfect storm of ideas comes together, you just dump all that onto the page and it all
hmm
kind of comes together, which is what this was. It was a culmination of all my experience with Frono's Photo, all my experience gaming online, and all my experience from like these individuals I used to do improv with, and uh, and then all my experience creating, producing and directing music videos and movies, all kind of culminated with We Need to Talk.
Mhm. Now, talking about, there's a lot of like the pre, once you get into production, a significant amount of the movie takes place in James's apartment or
Hmm.
Scott's apartment. Sorry, I was confused his name.
Same
Uh,
thing.
Now, when you go to shoot that, it's very possible you could shoot it very linear and in order, but did you have to prioritize, if we're sitting at the couch and he's gaming, did you try to just knock those out or like how did you kind of break it down? Did you get all of the other characters
He
first?
spent he spent the first week talking to me on the couch gaming.
Oh
So he
yeah.
was not talking to any of the actors when he's gaming. He's literally talking to me, and I'm doing a bad impersonation of every other actor, from the kid to Trey to
Mhm.
the British girl. Like I'm literally doing my a terrible impression of who how I think they're gonna sound. And that's kind of how that all pieced together. In a perfect world, I would have loved to like been able to like bring everybody in, but like the budget was tight.
Mhm.
And so like yeah, he it was very it's funny, he always jokes about how lonely he was that first week. But and then once the actors started showing up, he's like, "Oh, this is great. Like this is
Yeah.
great. Now I actually have people to play with." So, yeah, so yeah, I think the first week was shooting all him playing all of that side of him, and which we try to do it kind of from like when he's solo playing like beginning to end, so like so he could kind of feel his character's arc,
Hmm.
and try to like it's I don't want him to go from like sad to like happy and then back to like what I mean. You want to try to at least kind of like keep him in the same place so that they're not struggling to find the character or find the emotion in the scene. And then I think everything else kind of revolved around when Cass could come in. So I think Crystal came in, Allie, his girlfriend, she came in first, and then we shot that part. And then I'm pretty sure Jonathan came in to shoot Joe. And then Emily was kind of last, and she came in the day that we shot the axe scene, the axe throwing
Hmm.
scene. So that at that moment, she came in that day, came to that scene, and then like that's the only time all four of them are kind of on screen. So then once they were all there, and then I believe that's when Crystal left, his girlfriend, like she left, she was done, she wrapped. When we did the scene outside in the alleyway, like that was her last scene, and then we wrapped with the next day. I think shit, we did like that late night alleyway scene, and then the next day we did Emily's scene, like her coming through the door and just that ball of fucking
Yeah.
fireworks. So that was the very next day after pulling kind of a late night the night before. And then, so she, because she, we only had her for 2 days. She had to come in and out. She had some other obligations. So, like, we had to have her come in really quick and get out really quick. So that's how that happened. And then after she rolled out, then we kind of like wrapped with Jonathan and him. Jonathan and James had a lot of scenes together in the apartment. So we worked through all of that. And then, I think the last thing we shot was James smashing the PlayStation. Like that was
Huh.
the last scene we shot. So he smashes the PlayStation a couple times, or actually throws it onto a pillow multiple times, and
Mm.
until we finally decided to actually smash one. Um, and then that's where we ended. Kind of him by himself. He started by himself and he ended by
Yeah, by
himself.
himself.
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah.
Now, all the gaming that you see in the movie, now that obviously isn't a real game that's out there.
It is a real game.
It is all the footage is a real game.
It is a real game. So initially, like I had them. I told you I was playing a lot of Destiny at the time.
Okay.
So I kind of wrote it around the idea of like how I played Destiny, and we would get together and we would do raids together. Like we would gather like 5, 6 people together, similar to the 5 or 6 players he plays with all the time. So I kind of just used kind of general generic terms, like just in case. But I was like, I want to try to get Destiny in this movie, and we actually did talk to Bungie at great length, and like went through like we really got close, and then I think it just at some point they were in the middle of like a new game, and they were like, we just can't comprehend this right now. So I was like, all right,
Hmm.
cool. So luckily, I was like, well, shit, we need a game that's similar to that. I didn't want it to be a Call of Duty game because Headshot Heroes is kind of like making fun of that genre.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, and again, I love Call of Duty. Play it still to this day.
Hmm.
Not making fun of Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty, so don't come at me. But um, I was trying to make fun of kind of that tired, all the knockoffs, all the Call of Duty knockoffs that are kind of boring and like they almost kind of like not like Madden, but like these games that kind of come out every year and they're just like
It's copy
different.
paste, copy paste.
It's copy paste, and that's kind of what I wanted to make a comment about in the movie, and how we all in our lives can be copy paste, and we end up being boring, similar to the game. But so I wanted something that was like Destiny was outer space, or like looked futuristic, or looked crazy, and just very different visually. And I got lucky enough. I jumped on Steam and I just started looking through first person shooters and came across Splitgate. Um, and they were very new, but it was very much like Portal meets like Halo. Is what the game was really like. There were these portals, and you could go through and you'd shoot people, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Reached out to them, and they got back to me immediately, and they were like, yeah, I love the idea. And then I was like, well, here's the trailer for the movie. Here's what we're looking to do. They're like, yeah, we're in. So we worked that deal out. They were nice enough to jump on. Like we did a whole session. I literally directed a whole virtual session online with all the gamers. Like they got their best players together.
Huh.
They helped customize characters for me that would match my characters. So like Trey's character's kind of like dressed like a football, like honestly like a Philadelphia Eagles player almost. Like that was kind of me being
Yeah.
cheeky. But like, we kind of made everybody like they were so nice to like help me customize like what the characters looked like so they matched the characteristics of each player. So like the Splitgate guys, and they literally just have launched Splitgate 2. Like it's out now, I think, in the last like month or so, or it's coming out, or there's some bait. Like it's really, but they were so kind and so very like just so accommodating and really helpful. They really kind of like saved I wouldn't say save the movie, but they certainly made it better by like being a part of it and helping us make it so customizable. And they did like amazing plays. And like, I was like, oh, can you do a cool play here? And then can you die for me again? Like, can you like not do a good play? Sorry, good dude. Cause they had like their best players like join us and like play as like Great Scott or play as Kyle or
Hmm.
like they were playing as each one of these characters. I'm like, all right, here's what you got to do. You got to mess up, you gotta like teabag him here, like you gotta like like, and they were like, oh, cool, I get it. So I literally spent a day just like directing these like high performance gamers actually playing Splitgate, and just recording, and they recorded it on their end at high quality. They were, again, like I said, like shout out to Splitgate, and certainly if you haven't checked out the game, it's super fun. Like I said, it's Portal meets Halo, and it was such a huge get for us, and
Hmm.
super grateful to it, and it really worked flawlessly. Like, but I literally had to go in and be like, you've got to do this, this, and this in the game. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to dance around and be stupid on this one. Like, you do your emote on this, and it cut together like really kind of flawlessly. Now, Headshot Heroes, the Call of Duty modern, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
kind of knockoff, that was made from the scratch. Like that was just made in Unreal. Like somebody went and made that in Unreal Engine, and purposefully it was kind of made to look like not state of the art,
Hmm.
cut and copy and paste, like not the best of the best. So that was purposely done on that. But yeah, but no, the game they actively play is Splitgate, and I believe Splitgate 2 is out. So go play that. There's a little plug for those guys.
There you go. I bet they love that.
Hopefully
Now,
so.
one thing I also enjoyed about the movie was, when doing my research before talking to you and everything, was you had mentioned that a handful of your guys, little cameos for them. You also were able to get another big time Rush member to do
Oh
a
yeah.
small cameo. Now, was that just asking James for a favor? Was it he mentioned it? I
That
was
was
curious
James.
because
Yeah, James just called. I mean, the script always had other influencers and other people chiming in and piling on him about how bad We Need to Talk was. Like whatever We Need to Talk, whatever your girlfriend wanted to talk about was going to be bad. And
yeah,
everybody had an opinion. And I guarantee you, like anybody out there, if you tell your friends, like, oh, my friend or my worker or whoever told me we need to talk, they'd be like, oh shit, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Like they have horror stories. So we always knew it was going to be this like consistent piling on him to make him break. Like I wanted to make the character break. So, I don't know if you saw like we definitely had other like video game influencers
Hmm.
that were on. Um, and then we had, Fro jumped in there, like Fro knows photo. He was in there. I allowed him to make a cameo since I was probably making fun of him most of the
Yeah.
time. And the fact that James was wearing a t-shirt with his face on it was just a direct copy of like Fro knows photo. His logo is like his
Yeah.
face. And I'm like, I'm just making fun of you, dude. So sorry you want to be in the movie. And even in the back of like in this on the set, there's like it looks like a painting of James as Great Scott.
Yeah.
Like Jared has a painting of himself that like a fan painted for him, and he hung it in his house. And I used to just make fun of him like every day. I'm like, why do you have like how narcissistic are you
Yeah.
that you have this painting? And I was like, I'm putting this in the movie. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, sorry, I think I got off a path there. What was your question though?
Of going about getting like Kendall to do a
Oh
cameo.
yeah, 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 yeah. So with all that being said, there was always this plan of having influencers or other people he cared about kind of piling onto him. And just during that whole process, he knew like James knew we were doing. He's like, I can probably get a couple of the guys to do it. He's like, let me text Kendall. Kendall did it, and we literally like we had like a general script idea, like inspiration for people that were doing it, whether it was the other influencers or Kendall. We were just like, yeah, just say this to Scott and make up whatever you want to say. Like, say whatever you want to say, but like, give him advice on this "we need to talk" thing. And yeah, James just text Kendall. Kendall did it, and texted to James. James airdropped it to me, and it was actually pretty easy and simple to do.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part was probably just getting him to, sign a release just to make sure that we were all buttoned up on it. But
Yeah.
it was pretty easy. Yeah, I mean we toyed around with like other cameos or other nods to Big Time Rush
Hmm.
in the movie that we were like, oh, let's not do too much. But like that was fun, and it was greatly appreciated that Kendall jumped in on there. And I've since the movie came out, like I said, I stayed close with James, but like not too long after the movie came out, they went on tour again.
Yeah.
And when they were around the city, when they were close to me, like I came out and got to see all the guys, and they all were fans of the movie, surprisingly enough. So it was pretty cool. I was able to actually take my daughter to go see Big Time Rush and go see him backstage. So it all kind of came full circle. I was the coolest dad in the world at that point.
Oh, I imagine she was probably loving it because I remember when they went back on tour. Oh, I was there. It was,
Coolest dad in the world. Yeah, I was
they put
coolest dad in
on
the
a good
world.
show. They put on a
Yeah,
good
it was
show.
great. It was great. It was wonderful. No, it was wonderful, and it was really great for me to see, like, having worked with James in one capacity as an actor and having that relationship, seeing that relationship he has with his fans and on stage and all that stuff is like just pretty incredible and kind of awe-inspiring. Kind of the skills he brings to the table on that as well.
Yeah. And from what it's seems to be noticed is whether he's on tour or in your film, will always find a way to apparently take his shirt off, which I don't know if that was written in the script or if, did he
Well,
ask
it
for
it
it? It's,
was no, it 100% was, and it became a joke in the moment. It was one of those things where, again, like I imagined it being this like sloppier character when I wrote
Mhm.
it. So let's just imagine like I don't know, like a Jack Black opening the
Mhm.
door with a towel. Like that's funny.
Yeah.
They opening the door with me in a towel. That's funny. I'd look ridiculous when it came to James, we were like, oh geez, like what are we shooting right now? Like is this like a romance novel? Like this is smoking hot right now. Like this
Yeah.
is this is something special.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's plenty of people that have no complaints about seeing
Yeah.
James in just a towel when he opens the door. So I was more than happy to oblige, but no, it was in the script with a different intention,
Mm.
but I honestly think it's better the way it ended up happening.
Yeah. And then, one thing I also really enjoyed about the film was kind of the realistic aspect of, like you said, someone says, "Hey, we need to talk about something," and then just leaves. It's was interesting to see that like it was kind of the slow turn up of like I don't know, oh, what's that about? And then getting this person's opinion, oh, it's she could be pregnant. So you start thinking, locking on that. And then when that's not the answer, it's someone else and you lock into that. So going off that, it seems like it was a pretty fair analysis of kind of an actual day-long anxiety.
Hmm. Well, and honestly, like I what I realized is that it's really kind of a commentary on, how we all can be like so isolated in social media. Like we all look at people's opinions and what people think about maybe not your own personal thing, but what they think about everything else. And we get so like isolated and like we kind of go stir crazy. Like we kind of go crazy like when we're just sitting around on our phones, or we don't really talk to other people, like real people, and like have personal connections with people. So that was kind of a larger theme that we were well aware of, that having this life, or living life through a device or through screens, is part of life nowadays. Obviously, like there's nothing wrong with um, getting your entertainment where you get it,
Hmm.
but like the people on the other side of that screen, like it can be a struggle to separate the reality from who you are on screen, and what that entails. And that's something I kind of learned by working with Jared with Frono's Photo. And then just even just James as an actor or a famous singer, like there's a persona on stage or on set, and then we would go have lunch on an off day, and it's a different person. And I think it is a little bit of a commentary about, like, we all need to talk, not about bad things, but just get out, get off, turn off our phones, and just actually go out and just have experiences and connect with one another a little better than we might do right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's absolutely correct. I mean, the thing is with the changing of entertainment and how you can quite literally pretty much find anything you want online at any second. You know, as you said, you have just one daughter.
Yep, just the one. Yep.
So, is it one thing where you kind of incorporate that into your real life where, you see a lot of people now, or you go out to dinner and you have some kids with smartphones and iPads, where my first phone was a flip phone. That
Sure.
was
Yeah, same.
uh
Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, I mean, in terms of the movie, it was one of those things where, like, I think that's where the Kyle kid who just grew up with, being online and talking shit with no consequences, like you just kind of saw what that bred in him in the
mhm.
moment. Like, not probably the best person. And even with, Scott, with James's character, like him being isolated and just kind of believing the hype, like believing like who he is on screen is who he has to be all the time, like always be on. And I've seen that, like having to always be on and be this caricature of yourself is exhausting, and it can really kind of like have a be detrimental to kind of to your mental health, I think, sometimes. Now, as we all put on like a mask, for the most part, like we all are different people in different rooms. Like you're going to be a different
Mhm.
person at the office than you are with your best friends from high school.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And sometimes I think, these personalities can get into a place where like they feel the need to always be on in this person all the time, and it can be it can be challenging to people in their lives, and just for their own personal well-being. And I tried to touch on that in the movie a little bit, through humor, try to
Mhm.
make it not too heavy.
Well, listen, you've had all the excess of we need to talk, so I'm curious what's next in the pipeline? Are you finally going to do Adult Land? I did look into that research a little bit.
That's I mean, that's my baby. That's the one I've been trying to get off the ground for a long time. I wrote that before We Need to Talk, and I'm still working through it. I mean, right now We Need to Talk was a long process. I mean, we filmed it right before COVID, and we like screened it, like did a test screening I mean, literally a week before COVID. And it
Wow.
like did really well, and we were like, this is going to be great. We're going to go to film festivals. We're going to like really promote the shit out of it. Like we're going to have the actors come out. Like we're going to really push this hard and like hopefully gain some traction. And then COVID hit. and then it all just kind of everything slowed down. And what's crazy about that is, on the behind the scenes is that when COVID hit, you had all these major studios with big giant actors with movies that they're sitting on for theaters, and they're like, "Well, Netflix, do you want this?" And they're
Hmm.
like, "100% we want Tom Cruise or whoever, like whoever the biggest star in the world is, like, yeah, 100% we want that." Oh, by the way, do you want Todd Wolfe's movie? No. No, no, we're good. Or it was definitely more of a, you were fighting against like all the big theatrical releases when it happened. So I feel like we kind of struggled to kind of find our footing a little bit. And even to this day, like I feel like the whole industry is kind of like adjusting and changing and adapting to like just a different mindset of like people watching at home. Like we all got used to watching at home,
Hmm.
but not just watching like small things at home. Like when we put Streets out, like Streets, that was something that Netflix we picked up right away. But like, a little film like We Need to Talk up against like a Will Smith movie that all of a sudden like the competition was changed in a crazy way over COVID. And I think it's still I think the industry is still trying to right itself after all that. So um, you know, We Need to Talk still has legs though. Like I still get comics and people still reach out and like yourself. Like I'm like, people still have a fondness and have found it. But I guess I say all that to say there was so much competition in the moment around COVID that, I wish we would have had more time to have, be out in the world to kind of shake hands and kiss babies to like, introduce
Hmm.
people to the movie. So that's why I'm always happy to talk about it, and that's why I'm glad to be here with you.
No, and I very much appreciate it. Like I genuinely like from stepping into the game store have always like kept up on the movie.
I love
So
that.
now that like I generally it's very much an honor just to be talking to you. Like I
Thank you.
really appreciate you taking, time out and um that's I can honestly say like I looked into your work. I very much appreciate this so much.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to kind of talk about it and talk about the kind of the behind the scenes stuff too. I don't not everybody's always interested in that, but I think if you're an aspiring filmmaker or storyteller, I think it's good to know that, it's hard for everybody. No matter
Hmm.
the budget, that's the one thing I've learned. No matter the budget, it could be millions of dollars, it could be, $100. Like it's always hard. Movies are hard to make, and if you can get them done, it's always impressive, and you should be applauded for it. So whether it's a podcast like you're doing here, or a feature film, or anything else, like the fact that you're out here creating and getting it done is always impressive. So kudos to you as well.
Thank you very much. If you would like to plug your social media before we wrap up, you're more welcome to.
I think I am Todd Wolfe across all things. I think for the most part. So yeah, you can find me there. I try to post things. I try to post work I'm doing, but kind of quiet right now. I guess
That's
a
very well.
lot of commercial work.
Yeah, but well, again, thank you very much. And again, I thank you for your time.
Sorry, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate it.
Of course. And thank you guys for watching.